Night after night, when the world sleeps, some of us are left alone in the quiet hours. But the dark has a way of keeping secrets, secrets that only reveal themselves to those unlucky enough to be awake to witness them. Tonight, we step into the silence, into the shadows, and into the horrors that wait for those who work the night shift. These are not just stories. They are echoes of something deeper, something waiting. Welcome to the vile echoes, where shadows whisper, and the stories you were never meant to hear come alive in the dark. Tonight, we unravel 7 chilling stories, each darker than the last. Stay with me until the end, if you dare. Our first echo takes us into an empty office building, where one man discovered that sometimes the job isn't as lonely as it seems. I've worked the night shift at the old Fairview office building for years. Most people don't realize how unnerving an empty building can be after midnight. The silence isn't peaceful. It's heavy, like it presses against your ears. Usually, I sweep, mop, empty trash, and count the hours until morning. But one Tuesday night, everything changed. It started on the 7th floor, the computer lab floor. I was halfway down the hall when I heard it. Typing. At first I thought it was some leftover sound echoing, but the further I walked, the clearer it became. Someone was hammering at a keyboard. No one should have been there. The offices close at 9. I gripped the mop handle tighter and crept forward. The typing grew louder until I reached the lab door. When I pushed it open, the room was empty. Desks lined the walls, monitors glowing faint blue in the dark. They should have been off. Then I saw the message. Every screen displayed the same words in blocky letters. I'm watching you. I froze, my heart pounding. I blinked, and the screens went blank. I told myself it was stress, a trick of my mind. I turned to leave, but the typing started again. Faster this time. The words reappeared. I'm closer now. The monitors seemed to pulse with the glow. A cold draft brushed my neck, though the windows were sealed. That's when I noticed the reflection. In the glossy black of one monitor, I saw myself standing there. But I wasn't alone. Behind me, a dark shape leaned forward. I spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. I rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. From the inside. My pulse raced. I shook the handle, shoved my shoulder against it, but it held firm. The typing filled the room again, echoing from every direction. The fluorescent lights flickered wildly, buzzing like hornets. I turned back to the screens. The message had changed. Do you see me yet? My throat closed up. And then I saw it. Not in the screens this time, but in the far corner of the room. A figure. Tall. Too tall. Its body was stretched and thin, darker than the shadows around it, like it didn't belong in this world. No eyes, no mouth, just a faceless black silhouette, perfectly still. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It only watched. I pressed myself against the wall, muscles frozen. My ears rang with silence, my heart thundering in my chest. Finally, I squeezed my eyes shut and whispered, "It's not real. It's not real." When I opened them, the corner was empty, the lights steady, the typing gone. The door opened without resistance. I bolted. I didn't finish my rounds, didn't clock out. I ran until the cold night air burned my lungs. The next morning I told my supervisor. He gave me a strange look. "That lab, nobody's been in there for years. Power's been cut. Computers don't even work." I insisted he come with me. Together, we entered the lab. Dust coated everything. The monitors were dark, cords unplugged. The place looked untouched for months. I wanted to believe I'd imagined it, that it was a nightmare. But as we turned to leave, I glanced at one of the monitors. Through the dust, faintly etched into the glass, were words. "I'm still watching." But echoes don't only haunt hallways. Sometimes they come through the static. The kind of static that carries voices we were never meant to hear. The next story begins with a radio. I inherited an old transistor radio from my grandfather. He said it had been with him since the war, and warned me never to leave it playing after midnight. I thought it was just one of his strange superstitions, like salting windowsills or never leaving shoes upside down. When he passed, I kept the radio as a memento. It was a heavy little thing, all scratched metal and cracked dials, the kind of object that feels more alive than it should. For weeks it sat on my shelf gathering dust. One night, bored and sleepless, I decided to try it. The knob squeaked as I turned it. At first, just static. Then, a sudden voice broke through, clear and steady. "Good evening, Matthew." My skin prickled. No station should have known my name. The voice was calm. Too calm. Like it was waiting for me to respond. I whispered, "Who is this?" The radio crackled. "Someone who knows you. I can see you're wearing your black hoodie tonight." I froze. I was wearing one, sitting alone in my bedroom. I spun around, expecting someone at the window, but the street outside was empty. I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe it was picking up a pirate broadcast. But then the voice spoke again, softer this time. "Don't bother looking. I've always been here." My chest tightened. I reached for the knob to turn it off. But before I could, the voice continued. "You shouldn't touch that. If you do, she'll come." "Who?" I whispered. The static hissed, and for a moment I thought the connection was gone. Then I heard it. A woman sobbing. Faint but steady, buried beneath the noise. It rose and fell, like she was right there in the room, just beyond reach. I shoved the radio off, but the sobbing didn't stop. It echoed from the dark corners of my room, curling around me like smoke. I ripped the batteries out, but the sound only grew louder, twisting into words. Help me. Please. He won't let me go. I backed against the wall, clutching the useless radio. The sobbing turned into a scream, long and raw, and then silence. The next morning, I told myself it had been a dream. I didn't dare touch the radio again. But that night, I woke at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of static. The radio was on. I hadn't put the batteries back in. The voice greeted me again. Good evening, Matthew. Would you like to know when you'll die? I sat frozen, throat too dry to answer. The voice, like it already knew my fear. Not yet then. But soon I threw the radio into the dumpster outside. But the next morning it was back on my shelf. Dust disturbed around it, as if someone had carefully placed it there. I smashed it with a hammer, tearing the casing open, scattering wires across the floor. I thought it was over. But that night, lying in bed, I heard the familiar crackle. From the corner of the room came that same calm voice. You can't destroy me. You invited me in. I'll never leave. The sobbing began again, louder this time, filling every inch of the room until I covered my ears. My lights flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I woke, the radio sat neatly on the nightstand, perfectly whole, as if nothing had happened. A note rested on top of it, written in my grandfather's shaky handwriting. It said, I told you never to leave it playing after midnight. Radios whisper, doors creak, and sometimes the very things meant to keep us safe betray us. One family learned the hard way that a locked door means nothing to what lives in the dark. When my wife and I bought our house, I loved everything about it except for the basement. The door was heavy, solid oak, with a lock that looked older than the rest of the house. The real estate agent laughed when I asked about it. The previous owner kept tools down there, said he had a thing about security. But from the first week I noticed something strange. No matter how tightly I shut that basement door, it would be open again by morning. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I was forgetful, distracted. But then I started testing it. I locked it, slid a chair under the handle, even nailed a strip of wood across the frame once. Still, every morning, it would stand open. One night, determined to catch the culprit, I set up a camera in the hallway. I locked the door at 11 p.m., double-checked it, then went to bed. When I reviewed the footage the next morning, my blood ran cold. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the doorknob turned on its own. Slowly, deliberately, the door creaked open just enough for a shadow to slip out. A figure, hunched and indistinct, crawled across the floor toward the camera. and then the screen went black. I told myself it was a glitch, some trick of light. But when I checked the camera, the SD card had been snapped clean in half. From then on, the nights were unbearable. I'd lie awake listening to faint footsteps pacing upstairs, while I held my breath, knowing nothing human should be moving around at that hour. My wife insisted it was old pipes or the house settling, but I saw the fear in her eyes. One night I made a mistake. I yelled down the stairs, my voice shaking, "Stay down there." For a moment there was silence. Then, from the bottom of the stairs, something knocked. 3 slow, deliberate raps against the wood. After that, the knocking happened every night. Always at 3:03. Always 3 times. I begged my wife to let us move, but she refused. "We can't just run," she said. "It's just an old house." But the night she woke screaming, pointing at the corner of our room, I knew it wasn't just the house. She swore she saw a shadow standing over me, reaching out with long fingers. We left the next morning. I didn't care about selling, about losing money. We packed what we could and never went back. A month later, I drove past the old place out of morbid curiosity. The new owners were outside, unloading boxes. I almost stopped, almost warned them. But when I looked at the house, I saw the basement door, wide open, waiting. I kept driving. But the horrors of the night shift aren't always far away. Sometimes they're waiting just down the hall, behind the door of a neighbor you thought you knew. When I moved into my new building, the super warned me about one thing. Don't talk to the woman in 6B. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but his face stayed serious. If she knocks, don't open. If she calls, don't answer. Just trust me. I shrugged it off. The first week was normal enough. Noisy pipes, thin walls, the smell of fried food drifting through the vents. Then, late one night, I heard a knock at my door. Soft, rhythmic. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach twisted. A woman stood there, her face pale, her eyes too wide. She didn't blink. She just whispered, "Let me in. Please, let me in." Her voice was strange, layered, like 2 people speaking at once. I backed away, heart hammering. The knocking grew louder, faster, until I thought the door would break. Then it stopped. The next morning, I asked a neighbor about her. He paled. "Don't mention her. She's been dead for years." I thought he was messing with me. But when I looked up old records, I found her obituary. Same name, same apartment. She'd hanged herself in 6B. From then on, she came every night, knocking, whispering, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing in a way that made my skin crawl. I stuffed towels under the door, blasted music to drown her out, but nothing worked. One night, I made the mistake of answering. I didn't open the door, but I shouted, "What do you want?" The hallway fell silent. Then, slowly, a whisper slid through the door. "I want you to take my place." The handle rattled violently. My lights flickered and went out. In the dark, I heard her whisper again, right at my ear this time, though I was alone in the room. "I'll see you soon." The next morning, 6B's door was wide open. I swear I saw her standing inside, staring at me. I blinked, and the apartment was empty. I moved out a week later. I never went back. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, no matter where I am, I still hear that soft knock. Apartments hide secrets, but so do the forests, the places where shadows stretch long and mirrors reflect more than they should. Our next story takes us outside, where the trees keep watch. When I was a kid, there was a rumor about an old mirror hidden deep in the woods behind our town. The story went that if you found it and looked into it at night, you wouldn't see your reflection. You'd see something else. I never believed it until my friends dared me to find it. We hiked for hours, flashlights cutting through the dark. Finally, in a clearing, there it was. A tall, freestanding mirror, its frame cracked and rusted, glass fogged with age. I laughed, more to hide my nerves than anything. "This is it," I said. They dared me to look. When I did, my heart nearly stopped. My reflection stared back, but it didn't move when I did. Its eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. Then it smiled, slow and wide, though my own face stayed frozen. My friends swore they saw nothing, just me standing there staring into an old piece of junk. But I saw it. I know I did. That night, I dreamed of the mirror. In the dream, my reflection stepped out, grinning with teeth too sharp, too many. It leaned close and whispered, "Soon." I woke drenched in sweat, but worse, the sound of glass shifting echoed in my room. My closet door stood slightly open, and in the darkness, I saw a glint. For weeks, the dreams continued. My reflection grew bolder, mimicking me perfectly until the last moment, when it would tilt its head or grin too wide. Sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I'd catch it moving when I wasn't. Then, one morning, I walked past the bathroom mirror and froze. My reflection didn't move. It just stared, smiling that same inhuman smile. I smashed the glass with my fist, but in the shards on the floor, dozens of tiny reflections looked up at me. All of them were smiling. I never went back to the woods, but I don't think it matters. Every mirror in my house feels heavier now, like something's pressing against it from the other side. I never went back to the woods, but I don't think it matters. Every mirror in my house feels heavier now, like something's pressing against it from the other side, waiting. The woods echo with whispers, but some places scream louder than others. Hospitals, where life and death collide. In the next story, one patient learns that not all visitors come to heal. I used to work security at an abandoned hospital scheduled for demolition. My job was simple. Walk the halls, check for squatters, keep the place secure until the wrecking crew arrived. The first night, I felt it. The halls seemed endless, the peeling paint whispering with every draft. My flashlight beam shook more than I wanted to admit. On the second night, I heard the intercom crackle. It shouldn't have been working. The power was cut years ago. A voice whispered through the static. Room 413. Curiosity got the better of me. I found the room. The door was ajar, hinges rusted. Inside was a single bed, restraints still hanging loose from the rails. And on the wall above it, written in something dark, were the words, "Don't let him out." I backed out fast, but the intercom came alive again. "Too late," the voice whispered. From then on, I wasn't alone. Doors slammed on their own. Wheelchairs rolled down halls with no one pushing them. In the distance, I heard dragging footsteps, slow and deliberate, following me no matter where I went. On my last night, I heard heavy breathing right behind me. When I spun around, a figure stood at the end of the hall. Tall, gaunt, wearing a hospital gown that hung off its skeletal frame. Its eyes were hollow, mouth gaping wide in a silent scream. It took one step toward me, then another. I ran, not stopping until I burst into the cold night air. I quit the next morning. A week later, the hospital was demolished. I thought that would be the end of it. But sometimes, when I pass the empty lot, I hear dragging footsteps behind me. And finally, the night shift ends where it began, with work, with silence, with one worker who discovered that sometimes the most terrifying face is the one stitched together from too many others. There was a man in my town people whispered about, though few had seen him. They called him the Collector. The story went that he wore a mask stitched from human skin, and that at night he'd come for you if you looked into mirrors too long. I thought it was just another urban legend until my cousin vanished. She'd been obsessed with her reflection, always checking the mirror in her room. One night she didn't come down for dinner. My aunt found the mirror shattered, blood on the frame, no sign of her. After that, I started seeing things. A shadow lingering just over my shoulder when I looked in the bathroom mirror. A pale hand pressed against the glass when I walked past a shop window. Always gone when I turned. Then one night, lying in bed, I woke to the sound of glass cracking. I looked across the room. The mirror on my dresser was splitting down the middle. Something stepped through. He was tall, thin, draped in darkness. His mask was stitched from pieces of faces, all mismatched, some smiling, some screaming. He leaned close, his voice like dry leaves. "You've been looking too long." I couldn't move, couldn't scream. He reached out with long fingers, tracing my jaw. "I think yours will do nicely." I blacked out. When I woke, the mirror was whole again. But my reflection wasn't right. It lagged behind my movements. Eyes too dark. Smile too wide. I don't know how much longer I have before he comes back to finish what he started. Every time I look in the mirror, the collector smiles a little wider. 7 echoes, carried from one shadow to the next. But remember, the night shift never truly ends. Not in the office, not in the apartment next door, not in the woods, not in the hospital, and maybe not in your own home. When the lights go out and the world grows quiet, that's when the echoes find you. And if you've heard them once, you'll hear them again. Subscribe to the Vile Echoes and return for more nights like this, if you're brave enough. Until then, sleep well, if you can.